Very nice to see you, and thank you very much for your time. The most valuable and scarce resource, as you wrote in your book, Spending Time. Economics is about allocation scarce resources, and the economists consider such resources as capital, labor, and so on. And what does time mean as a resource? What do you think?
The main thing is that time is limited, okay? Even though we're living a little bit longer, we still only have 24 hours in a day. And what's interesting is we're getting richer. I mean, not fast enough, but we are getting richer. And in the US, for example, or most of Western Europe, in the last 60 years, people's incomes have more than tripled. But they're not living much longer. And there were 24 hours in a day when I was a teenager in 1960, and there's still 24 hours a day. But compared to money, time is getting scarcer and scarcer. And for that reason, it's increasingly relatively valuable, becoming scarcer and scarcer compared to other resources like labor, like capital.
And nowadays, as technologies develop fast and the economy is digitalizing, big tech companies compete, first of all, for users' time, not money maybe. And what do you think? What are the consequences of it? Is time becoming much more scarce than anything?
I don't know. I mean, in some sense, computerization, digitization is a time saver. Look, 30 years ago, we could not have done a television interview like this. I don't think you would have paid for me, but you would have had to pay for me to fly over to Moscow. And that would have been incredibly time consuming for me. We can achieve the same output in much, much less time, also much less money too. So in some sense, digitization economizes on time. But on the other hand, I can waste my time looking at Facebook, which is digitization, and that's a way of consuming time. So it really isn't clear which way time and digitization go. It just depends on the particular aspect of digitization that we're talking about.
Yes, and during the pandemic of COVID, digitalization is digital activity, of many people increased. So how does this affect the value of time?
Look, I have not been to an office of mine. I have two offices, one in Texas and one in New York. I have not been to an office since February of 2020.
Wow.
I don't need to go in. A, they're closed. B, I Zoom. And therefore, I'm saving, in New York City, I'm saving about an hour a day commuting. I live right near a subway that goes right to my office. In Texas, I'm saving 45 minutes a day because I don't have to bicycle 3 kilometers each way. Okay. So in that sense, I think this is true for many, many people. Without commuting time, people have a little bit more time. And once they get used to the technology that we are getting used to right now of Zooming, I think people have a bit more time. And I think this will stay permanent. I don't think people are going back to the offices 5 days a week because it's a waste of money and a waste of time. So in some sense, the crisis has probably made time a little bit less valuable and made us all better off in that one narrow aspect.
Yes. Maybe you saw the film, science fiction movie In Time. In this movie, time is used as currency.
I saw the movie.
Yeah.
I know.
And is it possible, what do you think, not in sci-fi movies, not only in sci-fi movies, maybe we can consider the value of time in real prices or something like that?
Well, look, this is not an original idea. I mean, think about Marxian theory, right? Marxian theory is about the labor theory of value. What is labor but the time of people? So in that sense, making time the currency is probably an idea at least as old as Karl Marx, even though it's science fiction. Most people do think about time as money. In a very real sense, the scarcity of time makes us treat it as if it were money. I think the real issue is as time becomes relatively scarcer, we run around more and more and more and try to cut corners. And in a sense, we feel like we're rats on a tube running around faster and faster and faster. And that doesn't make us very happy.
Yeah, sure. And in one of your studies you made shows that when people have more money, they are more stressed because time is more scarce. And do we need to earn less or relax more or something like that? Or maybe
I tell people who are stressed for time, you want to be less stressed for time, become a monk. Nobody's going to do that. This is not going to happen. And therefore, there's very little one can do, since we want lots of things, other than to find certain things in our life where we do relax. And so I think the best thing one can do, given people's desires for more income and more goods, is to find a little something which you can do to keep you off the rat race. But getting out of the rat race, that's not going to happen. And the problem is going to get worse and worse as we get wealthier and wealthier.
You wrote that about different levels of decisions. For personal, it's relax more, and in the level of companies and communities and governmental level, some other issues.
I think the issue there is that companies can't do very much. Let's say everybody talks about a 32-hour work week and how wonderful that would be. I guarantee if one company did that, okay, I don't think they could remain competitive. The only way that we can have this kind of imposed relaxation is if there's some government mandate to do it. The US is crazy in this regard. We have the shortest annual holidays of any country in the world. There's no government requirement that people have holidays from work. Many companies will give 2 weeks per year. A few will give 4. The cost of that in terms of lost production is very small. But unless the government mandates it, companies are not going to do it on their own. They can't afford it. So either I somehow make myself behave in a way to be more relaxed, or some national government mandates that we all do something to make us more relaxed. But there's no intermediate step.
It's always a trade-off, as you say it, between production and output and stress and scarce of time. Yes?
It is a trade-off, and yet, as a free market economist, I would think the trade-off would be what we want. But because of my desire to be a little bit ahead of everybody else, my competitive desires, I and others will work harder than we would like if somebody could force us to slow down. So in that sense, it's what we call in economics a low-level equilibrium trap. We're stuck because we don't want to lose out. But if we could all be forced to do something, we'd all be better off.
Is there any discrimination by time, inequality by time, as we say it? You wrote in the book that women are more time stressed than men, and one of your studies were about poor paid professors.
I think the evidence shows that professors do earn less than other people. And the reason is, to some extent, they're paying for the flexibility of their jobs. They're paying for freedom. Now, regarding men and women, in most families with little kids, the kids get sick. Who has to stay home? Okay. Typically, it's the wife. Who manages the household? Women do more different things each day than men do. I wouldn't say it's discrimination on time. It's rather roles, which may be viewed as discriminatory, make them more stressed for time.
Yeah, and about maybe other issues, you gather some empirical examples that help to understand economic concepts. And you wrote about such examples in your blog in Freakonomics. Due to the importance of everyday examples to understand economics, what do you think? Is economic primarily mathematics and formulae or narrative, as in Robert Shiller, narrative economics, or like that, various stories that influence people?
No, it's narrative. It's narrative, but in order to make sure that the narrative is precise, we use mathematics as a tool to guarantee precision. But it's most assuredly narrative. The best economists are those who do the narrative.
So economists are like writers, you know. You should tell the good story and to support it with maths.
I mean, John Maynard Keynes said that to be a good economist, you have to be a good writer, a good historian, and a good mathematician. But you shouldn't be too good at anything, because if you're too good at any one of those, that's all you do.
How long have you been writing your book, Spending Time? And maybe has your family criticized you that you're spending a lot of time on book and on work, but not enough time for family.
Well, the nice thing about being A, an academic, and B, being partly retired is I have time for almost everything. 30 years ago, I was incredibly stressed for time. I was sort of at the peak of my profession at the time, peak of my skills. I've given graduation speeches where I've told people at 22-year-olds, look, you think your problem is money, but your real problem is time. And you need to think about how to economize on time and enjoy it rather than keep on running. I'm also at an age now, which you will hopefully get to someday also, where time is less of a problem. But for the average 40 or 50-year-old, it's a real problem.